Coming up on Midco Motorsports, where there's smoke, there's Stewart. We'll look back at the three-time NASCAR champ's exciting run with the World of Outlaws at Huset Speedway. Meanwhile, a different band of outlaws invaded I-90 Speedway over the weekend. The ASCS National Sprint Cars highlight a huge night in Hartford. All that plus Cities Speedway, the Jackson Spring Nationals, and a special Hall of Fame edition of Hot Laps with Hot Rod. The green flag drops now. And how is everybody doing? I'm Jay Elson, and this is Midco Motorsports. Well, racing has taken Tony Stewart all over the world, but it had never brought him to South Dakota. That changed last week when the three-time NASCAR champ hooked up with the World of Outlaws for its annual visit to Huset Speedway. Stewart certainly drew a crowd. In fact, it was the largest crowd ever at Huset's first sellout in the track's 59-year history. And once things got rolling, Smoke made sure to put on a show. Didn't look like a guy who'd never been on the track before. Time trials, navigates the 1/3 mile oval in 10.533 seconds. Good enough for second fastest on the night. The only guy that was quicker was this man right here, Rutherford, California's Rico Abreu. Pilots the 24A to a time of 10.480 seconds to capture his first career quick time with the World of Outlaws. The other half of the show featured Huset's late model street stocks. Alexandria, South Dakota's Billy Prouty started on the pole and had command early, but a couple of cautions would keep him from running away with it. That allowed the veteran Craig Hanisch to make a move late. The 45, which started 10th, gets past Prouty with 3 laps left and drives on to victory lane for the second time at Huset's this season. And with that, Hanisch climbs into second place in the track's late model street stock standings. He's 20 points behind Gary Brown Jr., who finished 4th on Wednesday after winning the previous 2 weeks. All right, let's move to the 35-lap main event. Fireworks filled the sky as the Outlaws salute that capacity crowd. Tony Stewart started third, the A main, while Tim Kading owned the pole. Lap 4, the 83 still running first when the King goes airborne. Steve Kinzer collides with Jason Sides between turns 1 and 2. That'd be the end of a rough night for Kinzer, who also wrecked during his heat race. On the ensuing restart, Kading elects to go to the top. That gives inside position to Stewart, and he takes advantage. Smoke gets a great jump and drives the 14 car into the lead. He'd stay in front for the next 26 circuits, but that's when lap traffic does him in. Stewart gets caught behind James McFadden, spins in turn 4. That ends his bid for the win and gives the lead back to Kading. And this time he wouldn't let it go. The San Jose, California native collects his 7th World of Outlaws STP Sprint Car Series win of the season. It's also his 2nd victory in as many appearances at Huset's.
We came here for probably 10 years and never had any really good luck, and just to come here and win two races in a row is unbelievable. You know, it's you know, all owed to my team. They give me a great race car every night. I get to go in. I'm a big kid and get to play in the dirt and have fun.
Points leader Darren Pittman followed Kading across the line on Wednesday, giving him 26 top 5 finishes in 39 races. Paul McMahon, Cody Dara, and Rico Abreu rounded out the top 5, while Stewart was forced to settle for a 17th place finish. He wasn't talking afterward, but he and his spin-out were certainly among the hot topics.
I saw the lap car hit the berm going in 3 and drive straight up the racetrack, so I knew it was going to, probably, hold him up, but kind of lost him in the right sideboard on the wing, and to be honest with you, I'm just really glad it didn't hit him because I didn't see him till it was too late, and the lap car, I don't even remember who it was, just kind of messed him up, and it's easy to do. There's not a lot of time to react, and he had to slow down and probably pitch it sideways to keep him running into him, and ended up spinning himself out.
Tony's one heck of a race car driver. He's one of a few guys that I idolize in life, and he can get in anything and gas it up. That's the biggest thing. Him, Jack Hewitt, and my dad are probably the 3 guys that mean most to me in life, and I feel bad. He probably had that race won, and racing with lap traffic just kind of ate him up a little bit there at the end. So you know, it's I feel bad for him. He can get in and gas these things up, so that's the biggest thing. I mean, I hope the fans got their money's worth, and hopefully it was a good race.
From Huset's, the Outlaws, Tony Stewart moved on to Dodge City, Iowa, where Donnie Schatz and Pittman picked up wins over the weekend. Saturday's victory was Pittman's 6th of the season. He remains on top of the STP Sprint Car Series standings, 139 points ahead of Paul McMahon. Schatz, who got his series-leading 8th win of the year on Friday, slipped 1 spot to 3rd. Well, another batch of local racing legends is set to be enshrined in the Cities Speedway Hall of Fame this summer. Rod Pattison will unveil the class of 2013 when we come back.
And welcome back to Midco Motorsports, and it's time now for Hot Laps with Hot Rod. And this week, one of my favorite times of the year, it's Hall of Fame week as we unveil the 5 new members into the Huset Speedway Hall of Fame. And joining me to unveil the class of 2013 is one of my fellow committee members, Rob Ristison from the Sioux Falls Argus-Leader. Rob, welcome.
Hey, thanks, Rod. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure to serve on this committee with you and 5 other voting members and 3 advisors. Talk about this committee for a little bit. We've got Harry Torgerson, Hall of Famer, Donnie Jones, one of the founding fathers, who is also a Hall of Famer in his own right, Terry Kiergaard, Doug DeWall, Rick Dump, and then yourself and myself. And then we've got the advisors, of course, with Mark Tassler and Jerry and Kathy Cunningham, and then, of course, probably the founding father himself, Tom Savage. I mean, that's, wow, what a committee, and it's a pleasure to be part of that committee.
Absolutely. You know, it's like you've said, it's a great cross-section. We have drivers, officials, media, fans, you name it. You know, everybody is able to put in a little piece from every aspect of the sport.
A lot of times it's hard to do business because we're sitting around telling stories and we have so much fun listening to them.
That's true. You got to be careful. It's easy to get taken up into talking about old events and stuff, but it's very interesting.
No question. Let's talk about the process, because every year we get together and we have discussions about how many people should go in and who should be in, those types of things. When it comes right down to it, all we're looking for is the best for the Hall of Fame and not try to water it down, but yet try to get as many people in as we possibly can that are so deserving.
You're absolutely right. You know, and it's so difficult with the Racing Hall of Fame. You can't exactly go by statistics and that. It's not like a stick and ball sport type of deal. You're looking for contributions as well as performance, and a lot of things take consideration. Very difficult to choose every year.
Yep. 5 new members, and of course this is the first public unveiling of that. So we start with our first inductee, guy that was a longtime official, John Trigg.
Yeah, John was, I believe he began he was there right at the beginning when Huset's, the Stock Car Association, I should say, took over Huset's, and board member, and he helped develop the point system. He kept the points for years. I believe he was there probably about 20 years, a very faithful member, did a lot of work for the track.
Yep. Next in line, of course, is a guy that made a lot of laps, won a lot of races at that racetrack, the old rawhide sprinter, Franny Bruns.
Oh, yeah, I remember, you know, we all remember Franny well. Very competitive driver, did awesome on the track. First began in mini sprints, moved up to sprint cars, and for a number of years he was dominant at whatever track he raced at around here.
Our third inductee, Rich Giodoni.
Yeah, Rich, a lot of people may not know him. Rich came here in the 60s with Bill Hill from California. He was a mechanic for Bill on his modified, and he stayed a mechanic throughout right up until last year, I believe. Just a great supporter of the sport.
Yep. Rich Giodoni was crew chief for our next inductee for a long, long time, Randy Rosenboom.
Yes, Randy got his start in the late models way back from around the Rock Rapids area, and moved on, raced late models all around the area, moved up to sprint cars, and he still gets out into a car even today.
Yep, indeed. Last but not least, the guy you had a chance to get to know that much better, he and his wife Diane, Randy Drescher.
Yeah, Randy, one of the greatest stories in sports, I believe, in motorsports around here, is support of it, and the way he came up here for about 20 years. He traveled back and forth from the Norfolk, Nebraska area to compete at tracks here.
Absolutely. So those are the 5 inductees into the Huset Speedway Hall of Fame this year. John Trigg, Fran Bruns, along with Randy Drescher, Randy Rosenboom, and, of course, Rich Giodoni as well. Those 5 will be inducted in a ceremony at Huset Speedway coming up on Sunday, July 28th at the racetrack, a social at the 212 in Brandon from 3 until 5. Hope you can make it. Stay tuned for more details. So that's the unveiling of the Hall of Fame. Rob, thanks for joining us.
Hey, my pleasure. Thank you, Rod.
Absolutely. Rob Ristison from the Sioux Falls Argus Leader. Plenty more highlights when we return on Midco Motorsports. We'll have highlights from River City Speedway in Grand Forks and a fun night at Hartford, the ASCS National coming to I-90 Speedway. That rolls on when Midco Motorsports returns in just a couple of moments.
And welcome back. Well, after being at least partially rained out in 8 of the season's first 9 weeks, the racing at River City Speedway in Grand Forks has finally reached its peak. Starting with the World of Outlaws event on June 21st, the Bull Ring has now seen 3 straight events stay dry. Of course, that could lead to a different set of problems. The heat and dry air made for some tough track conditions on Friday. But Jordan DeRay handled it pretty well. He had the pole for the street stock feature and would hold the lead from wire to wire, which he says can be a tough thing to do.
It gets a little bit frustrating. You never know what people are doing behind you when you've been out front all race, so it's tough to judge if you should still run the same line.
Second win of the year and a mid-season track championship for DeRay, who's currently clinging to a 3-point lead over Mike Anderson in the street stock standings. Ryan Flayton, Ryan Johnson, and Daniel McNamee make up the rest of the top 5. To the Midwest Modifieds, where the E85 car of Jason Strand can't hold off Rick Pavlicek on turn 1. Later on, Pavlicek does manage to fend off a late charge from Tyler Peterson, and he goes on to grab the checkered flag.
Last lap, I didn't know that Tyler was there. Him and I have been going back and forth all year. It's been good racing between him and I. I got to him a couple weeks ago on the very last lap coming out of 4. Maybe it was my turn this time, but I guess he was looking down on me and let me have this win again.
Now, Strand finished the night in 16th place, but still holds a 1-point lead on Pavlicek for the season. Tyler Peterson, meanwhile, climbs up 1 spot to 3rd overall. He's just 4 points back. The late model race saw points leader Joey Peterson start on the inside of row 1, and the 7-piece stayed there all night long. Peterson dominates en route to yet another win, but says it probably looked easier than it really was.
You know, honestly, I felt it was hairy the whole race. I was waiting to get past. I was on the brake as much as I was on the gas tonight. The car didn't, for whatever reason, didn't like the track. The track just kind of felt choppy to me, and I don't know. It was a handful for sure, but it was enough to get her done, I guess.
While he's dominated victory lane this season, Peterson's lead in the standings isn't as big as you might think. Just 4 points in front of Dustin Strand. Mike Balkane is right there as well. He's 9 points off the pace. To the Outlaw sprints now, and the hometown hero Mark Dobmeyer was on his game. The 13 survived several restarts en route to feature win number 2 and the mid-season track championship.
To be honest, I didn't think this race was ever going to end. We hadn't seemed to have a whole ton of cautions, but I think that's due just to the tough track conditions and slippery. And these guys only got a couple races in up here, so no one's used to this type of track. But you know, it weighs on your mind a little bit, but you just got to concentrate on getting a good start and beating them to that first corner.
With the win, Dobmeyer pulls within 6 points of Wade Nygaard in the standings. Austin Pierce stands between them, with the Mack brothers, Casey and Mitch, sitting 4th and 5th, respectively. The ASCS National Sprints were the special guest for Saturday's show at I-90 Speedway. We'll start, though, with the Superchargers. This one was all Justin Volts. The 22 car ran free and clear all night and cruises to the win, his 2nd of the season. Despite that victory, Volts still 37 points off the pace set by Justin Peterson in the Supercharger standings. Peterson finished 6th on Saturday. On to the hobby stocks, where things got off to a rough start. Couple of cars get together in turn 1. 3 others get caught up as well, and that brings the race to an early standstill. When they returned to action, Sioux Falls' Dustin Gulbranson quickly pulled away from the field, and no one would catch him. Back-to-back wins now for the 6 car at I-90. That puts him on top of the track's hobby stock standings, 2 points ahead of Zach Olivier and 53 points in front of Hartford's own Tim Waltner. The B-Mods were next, and this one was pretty much a 2-horse race between Cameron Vandeweerd and Maya Christensen. The 7M gets past the 44X as they come to the white flag, but both guys have trouble getting around the lap car driven by Tim Getz, and that proves costly for Christensen. He fails to negotiate the turn, allowing Van de Weerd to coast in for his first win at I-90. Now, neither of those guys is much of a factor in the points race, which, by the way, is a good one. 3 drivers separated by a total of 2 points. Tim Dan and Dave Kennedy currently share the lead, with Marty Myers hot on their heels. And that brings us to the Lucas Oil ASCS Outlaw feature. There'd be very little drama in this one. Everyone was chasing Logan Forler out of Lake Havasu, Arizona, and nobody came close. Forler leads all 25 laps en route to his second main event win of the season. 6 appearances for the ASCS at I-90 now, and Forler becomes the 6th different winner. And he is now just outside of the top 5 in the ASCS National Sprint Car standings. Johnny Herrera, who finished 4th in Hartford, is your leader. Jason Johnson stands 2nd, 51 points off the pace. Well, it was another great weekend for the Midco Motorsports region at Knoxville Raceway. We'll recap that, as well as the Jackson Spring Nationals, right after this. The Midco Motorsports region continues to be well represented at Knoxville Raceway, with several area drivers faring well at Iowa's famed half mile this season, and that trend would continue on Saturday night. We'll start with the 360's crazy start to the 18-lap feature. Pole setter Jamie Ball gets sideways in front of the field, and that causes a big old mess. Several cars involved. Nate Van Haften certainly gets the worst of it. He would be uninjured. After the full restart, points leader Clint Garner, who started 6th, creeps closer to the front as he gets past Tony Schilling to take over 2nd place. 2 laps later, Garner completes the climb, races by John Agin on the inside to take the lead, and it was all Garner from there. He takes the checkered flag for his 4th win of the season and 19th of his career. That puts him all alone in 3rd place on Knoxville's all-time list. Meanwhile, Garner's lead in the standings continues to grow, now 196 points over Joe Beaver. Van Haften falls to 3rd overall. Saturday was twin feature night for the 410s, and in A-Main number 1, Brian Brown jumps out to the early lead. Lap 2 now, hard crash. Austin McCarl and Tasker Phillips come together in turn 1. Both drivers were okay. When racing resumed, a great battle develops between Brown and Justin Henderson. Lap 12, Henderson gets under Brown to take the lead. 2 laps later, Brown, not to be outdone, he gets back in front, passing Henderson on the high side. And they still weren't done, at least until lap 16. After another restart, Henderson takes the lead for good. He goes on to capture the checkered flag in what was his first race at Knoxville this season. It was his 5th career win at the famed half mile. Brian Brown finished 2nd, with Kyle Larson coming in 3rd. Terry McCarl and Davey Heskin were 4th and 5th, respectively. Henderson then went to the back of the pack for the start of the inverted A-Main, but keep your eyes here on Mark Dobmar. The 13 car gets into the high groove and slingshots from 8th place to 2nd within the first half lap. He continued the climb on lap 2, blows past A.J. Moeller into the lead. Meanwhile, NASCAR Nationwide driver Kyle Larson had started a charge of his own. Fast forward to lap 17, Larson gaining on Dobmar, but he breaks a front end part, takes a hard right turn into the wall, ugly crash, but he was okay. Later on, Bronson Mason takes a run at Dobmar, but the Grand Forks native manages to hold him off and hang on for his 3rd win in as many weeks at Knoxville. Dobmar still stands 5th overall in the track's 410 standings, though he has gained significant ground on points leader Ian Madsen in recent weeks. Bronson Mason, Terry McCarl, and Dusty Zomer sit 2nd through 4th. Jackson Speedway played host to one of the region's premier 360 events back on June 26. 34 cars on hand for the 6th annual Jackson Spring Nationals, but only one would collect the $7,500 prize, and it quickly became pretty clear who that would be. Pole setter Brian Brown out of Grain Valley, Missouri, gets a great jump off the start to take command in the 21 car. A few laps later, the 41 of Jason Johnson makes a bid for the lead. Brown, though, manages to fend him off, and that would be the only real challenge he would face all night. Brown leads all 25 laps en route to his second consecutive Jackson Spring Nationals victory. Great news for a team that's endured some recent struggles.
Just kind of missing something the last couple of weeks. We decided to put a new car together and just kind of get a fresh start, and here we are. So I couldn't be more happy, and second time winning this Spring Nationals. Want to thank Fulkins Brothers for all they do, especially putting on this big race. This is not a race anymore. This is an event, and to win it 2 times is an absolute honor. And I don't know about you, but that's probably one of the coolest trophies I've ever got.
You were way out in front, and I don't know if you knew how far you were ahead, but this was a dominating performance. And your nickname is Blackjack. Boy, you played your cards right and got some great draws, some great starts, and great position all night.
Yeah, I tell you, that's key. You know, the track wasn't a lot of passing early, so you had to be starting towards the front, and we were able to start in front of the heat, and we really didn't have to pass the car all night long until we got to traffic. And you know, I knew with Jason Johnson and Wayne and Terry, you know, behind you, you can't jack around and get the traffic. You got to run these things like outlaw races, and you got to run a hard pace. And I didn't think I jacked around too much in traffic, and we got through there pretty good. And you see that yellow with 7 to go, you're like, oh, do you really want that? And give them guys another shot. You know, you never really know what's going on behind you. And I just ran those last 7 laps as hard as I possibly could, and here we are.
Racers can get their confidence shaken once in a while. I know things were going real well for you. Obviously, a big dominating win like this has to kind of boost your confidence going into July.
It sure does. I mean, it's to be honest with you, as well as we've been running, especially at Knoxville and stuff, my confidence was a little shaken. I mean, just when you start running bad, you know, we went to a ASCS National Tour show last Saturday night and ran 12th. It's just, you know, you look yourself in the mirror, and we had a team meeting on Monday, and I just told the guys, normally I'd be, you know, an ass all week long, and, you know, and be miserable, and I just told them, hey, we're going to stick together, we're going to do whatever it takes, and I got the best team I feel in the country, and confidence is 90% of this game, I feel, and you know, we got ourselves a pretty good hot rod right now.
Now, Brown dominated a pretty impressive field at Jackson Speedway. Wayne Johnson was a distant second with Terry McCarl in third. Dusty Zomer and Jason Solwald rounded out the top 5. Well, we've reached the white flag. We'll wrap things up with a look at your weekend schedule right after this. Here's a quick look at your Midco Motorsports calendar for the weekend ahead. Enjoy the races, everyone. We'll see you back here next week for another episode of Midco Motorsports.